the biochemical reaction in our body when an emotion happens is about 90 seconds. But we've all experienced negative feelings or difficult feelings that go much longer than that. And the reason is because our minds are focused on the circumstance.
Everybody, I'd like to welcome you on my podcast Renew Motherhood, and this episode is how to help your child deal with their feelings. And for this topic I have an amazing guest, Angela Legh. Please briefly introduce yourself. I'd like to hand it over to you. Who are you? Where are you from?
Well, hello, Blanka. It's such a pleasure to be here with you this morning, or well, afternoon. My name is Angela Legh. I'm an author, a television producer, and a journalist. I live in Taos, New Mexico, which is an interesting place to live. And probably in the next month or so, snow will start falling. Yeah, so I'll have a nice thick sweater on by November.
Wow, yes. Well, you have actually snow. We always hope to get snow here. Otherwise, it's only cold.
Yeah, we live at 7,500 foot elevation. So we're on the mountain. Yeah.
Great. Yes. Okay. So, but you're an author of books. You just mentioned it. And they are fantasy books, but adults like to read them too. There is a strong message behind. Do you like to share something? What is your personal story here? Why have you written those books?
So that's kind of two different questions. What's the message and what's my story? So I'm going to start with the message first. And really, the message that my books, which are aimed at 8 to 14-year-olds, but like you said, yes, adults do enjoy them. Those books are very innocent, clean, sweet little fairy tales, but they're adventurous too. And the main message is that you matter, that you are important, and your emotions matter. You need to face them. And more importantly, it's really that the repression of emotions creates all kinds of problems. And we'll go into that later, but that's the message. Feel your feelings, and that is more important than repressing your feelings.
And this actually starts even with the children.
Yeah.
You guide them how to feel their feelings, how to become aware of what they feel.
Absolutely. One of the goals, I guess you could say, in the book is what I call focused attention. When you put the focus of your attention on the feeling you're feeling, and you maybe describe it, you imagine what color it is and how big is it? Is it sharp? Is it a ball? Is it roiling? What are the qualities of that feeling? Your mind is so involved in the feeling, it can't think about the circumstances that brought on the feeling. And so you focus your attention on the feeling, acknowledge that you're feeling that way, and then you say, it's okay. It's okay for me to feel this. Once you do that, the feeling will flow and it'll dissipate.
So it's for good and bad feelings, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah, it's good to focus on your good feelings, but also it's very important to focus on your bad feelings. And I don't like to quantify feelings. I think, for instance, anger and rage, they have meaning and place. And so, sometimes we get very angry over something someone's doing to someone else. And that can be righteous anger. It can cause us to start a movement or, do something to make the world a better place. If you have cancer, being angry at the cancer actually stimulates your immune system. So it's short-term anger. It is, something that you use as a platform to create something in the world, that is actually positive. But when anger is used to lash out at others, when it's projected feelings that were never expressed from a childhood or some other event that caused you great pain, then that is actually what I call a negative expression of the feeling. So we can express any emotion in a positive or a negative way. A positive way is a way of expression that doesn't hurt you, your family, or humanity. When you have a negative expression of emotion, some people will repress their feelings by drinking alcohol or doing drugs or self-harming or even going shopping. In America, retail therapy is a thing. Yeah, I'm going to feel better if I go shopping. So all of those coping mechanisms actually are not allowing the feeling to express. They're repressing, escaping, pushing it away. And when we do that, the feelings, they don't go away, they stay. So,
but we have got a feeling of they are gone, right?
well, we think they're gone.
We think they are gone, right?
Yeah, we're tricked into feeling that they're gone. But for instance, my father was an alcoholic and he was pretty filled with rage. He would drink to escape from the feelings of inadequacy that his father made him feel. When he drank, he behaved badly. And so his family, us kids and his wife, we saw him as not a good father, he didn't meet the bar of what was a desirable dad. And so his drinking to escape the feelings of being inadequate caused him to behave in a way that he was seen as inadequate.
Yes.
And yeah. So it's a lie. It's never an escape.
It seems like a circle.
Yeah.
Try to escape, and then you are drawn back to this point where you want to escape from. So
yeah.
But
so
you mentioned even if it's hard, I think it's difficult to acknowledge bad emotions, bad feelings, right?
It is. But so when you acknowledge, it's important for you to say, I feel, instead of I am.
Yeah.
Because when you say I am angry, you are claiming that as your state of being.
That's great.
And when you say I feel angry, you're saying I'm experiencing this feeling, but it's not who I am.
Yes. That's great. Wow.
Yeah.
That's valuable, very. But we come now to the point you just mentioned your father. Is this a reason that you wrote the books?
Yes and no. I remember 5 years ago, my friend had a 9-year-old daughter and I wanted to entertain her. So I started writing a sweet little story and the story grew. And by the time I had 60,000 words written, I realized, which is two books worth, I realized that all the wisdom I gained over all the things that happened to me in my life were included in the books. So I didn't set out to write something that could help people understand feelings, but it kind of happened.
Yes. So this is the story behind to say, okay.
That's the story behind.
I jumped into it, not really with intention to do it.
Yeah.
But it happened because of being kind or being connected to this little girl and wanted to help somehow.
It was really, I started writing the books. And then at the time I lived in California, there was a wildfire that happened in Northern California, the Tubbs wildfire in the San Francisco Bay Area, that destroyed in one night 5,000 homes. And one of them was mine. I lost everything. And, when life kind of turns upside down in that way. Sometimes you're forced to re-examine what you're doing. What happened to me was I said, gosh, if in 10 minutes you can go from being a homeowner to homeless, then am I wasting my time living a life I don't want to live? And the answer was yes. So in the next year, I left my former husband. I quit my job and I moved to England to start over.
This is completely life-changing, right?
Very life-changing. Yeah. Yeah.
So you left everything behind.
I left everything behind and I moved to a place where I didn't know anyone. Yeah.
How did you deal with this? How did you start?
I went on meetup.com and looked up groups in Cheltenham, England, which is where I moved, and joined a couple.
Yes.
So when I started, I would just go to one of the group meetups. So, as soon as I moved there, I would go to a group meetup, meet some people. And that was how I, found friends in England.
Yes, because being alone, completely alone,
Completely
in
alone.
a country you don't know.
Well, that did happen because COVID started.
Oh.
Yeah. So I was there in England for, I think, 3 or 4 months, and then COVID started. And we were stuck inside. My kids, my family still lived in the US, and I was in England, and it was hard.
Yes, I can imagine this. Have you already written those books, or have you started, or have you got some books?
Yeah, I had started. By the time COVID came around, I had book 1 and 2 finished. There was a lot, when you're publishing a book, there's a lot of different steps, including getting illustrations and then getting editing. And so even though when COVID started, I had both books written, they didn't come out until 21, 22.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and could you put something from your experiences with your life changing inside your books too? Or is this not a topic for you?
It's interesting. At the end of book 2, there are these ethereal wraiths that rise up from the mist, and they will take a finger and point to a fairy and pull their life energy out and then take on their life energy. And that is, I realized later that was kind of what I felt like in my marriage, that the life energy was being sucked out of me. I really didn't feel like I had a voice. My opinion didn't matter. I was in a very controlling, and, I understand now that his experience wasn't easy. And his experience, he didn't know how to deal with his emotions, so he just tamped them down. So there was a lot of repression going on from my early childhood. Sometimes when you have a father who's raging, you will decide, I can't be like that, which is how I reacted to my father's rage. And so what I did was repressed anger. Girls are supposed to be nice. Boys tend to repress sadness because they're supposed to be tough and strong. And those messages that our parents handed to us, they're very damaging, because repressed emotions will either go inward and attack your cells and disease happens, or they go outward and you lash out at others. So when they're going inward, it could be that you're choosing coping mechanisms like alcohol or drugs or self-harming, and those are you harming yourself. When they go outward, you're harming others.
So, and you decided not to take the anger from your father and put it out, so you decided to go inwards.
Yeah.
How did your children deal with this, with a mom who's having those, I don't know, those inwards feeling that are damaging?
Yeah, that's a great question because I just didn't have the wisdom that I have now about emotions when my kids were young. So, as a parent, the behavior I modeled for them was to not talk about it, to ignore it, to push it down. And that is a legacy that I am saddened by because if I could have taught them what I know now, their life could be a lot easier.
So this is a point where other mothers can really learn from, right?
Mhm.
Now to say,
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
don't do
Yeah.
this with your children. Yes, they're not supposed to be happy if you just lead this field, if you go this way, this path. Instead, encourage them to get into their emotions and to feel and to express it, right?
Yeah. I think of the classic mother in a grocery store with a screaming kid.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? So the thing that I would do if it was my kid, I would say, hey, I understand that you're feeling something here. Can you tell me what it is? Because I don't want to assume what they're feeling. I would ask them, what is it that you're feeling? And then I would say, how does it feel? Is it sharp? I would walk him or her through the focused attention.
That's great. So
And
you use some adjectives, how to describe the feeling, right?
yeah, yeah. And then be empathic with them.
Mhm.
Say, hey, I understand that you're feeling this way. And you know what? It's okay to feel this way. If the child is having a huge tantrum, that's
Mhm.
probably not going to work. But it's also okay to say, you know what? It's not okay for us to behave this way right here. I'm going to take you out to the car and you can continue on with this behavior if you want in the car. And so it's okay to set boundaries. In fact, it's very important to set boundaries. A child who doesn't learn boundaries in childhood will not have them as an adult, and they will be misused and abused in life by people who take advantage of them.
Wouldn't you say that life itself gives us boundaries?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, look at age, right? It's a boundary. We can't do anything about it. We're going to get older. We're going to experience other, body aches and pains and wrinkles and all of it. And it's just that a boundary of life that we live with.
Yes, and children actually, yes. And if they have got so many things to do, I think nowadays they are really, so many things are expected from them
Yeah.
to do, and so many tasks are thrown on them. Well, if I look at my children, I can see, okay, mom, I have to do this and this and this and this. And I say, okay, where's your free time? I don't have it. I said, hey, you're a child. This
Right.
cannot
Where
be.
has
So
childhood gone?
yeah, right. So I think sometimes this is also a boundary when they cannot take the time sometimes that they want to have. And this is not
Yes,
because
and
of
that's a result of expectations. And
Mhm.
it might be expectations they put on themselves. So
Yeah.
they want to play soccer, they want to play football. So they put the expectation that they will practice and be good at this game on themselves. And sometimes parents put expectations on a child. You're going to become a doctor, so you need to have good grades. And I expect you to come home with A's or,
Mhm.
the highest level grades in the classroom. When a parent puts an expectation on a child, they are not considering the child's needs, wants, or desires. They are only putting their needs, wants, and desires onto the child. So I am kind of against expectations, but for boundaries. And it's like, well, when you have an expectation, you can expect to be disappointed because the whole world does not align with what you want and desire.
Wow, yes. Sometimes parents who could not achieve what they wanted to achieve, maybe put their expectations on their children to say,
And
okay, I
yeah,
want you to have this.
you want to, I wanted that, so you should want it, and blah, blah, blah. But
Yeah.
what if your child is artistic and you're trying to force them into a lawyer job?
Well,
They will die of not being able to express properly in the lawyer job.
yes,
It's not aligned with who they are.
right.
When you can say, you know what, art is a beautiful thing and it makes, the world a better place. Let's explore what careers you can have in art that will pay the bills. So maybe you become a graphic designer, or maybe you become a web designer. Those jobs would allow that creative spark to flow, and the adult of that child will feel more aligned with who they are.
Yes, right. So let go of your own expectations as a parent and instead look what your child is bringing.
Exactly. Khalil Gibran said something about your child is an expression of you, but it's not your property. And it is your child, you are there to knock it as an arrow and let it fly.
Right.
You're not there to decide which direction they're going to go. You're not there to force them into fulfill your desires. They are here to fulfill their own.
So each of us has got his own job to do here,
Right.
his own purpose that we are on.
That is exactly it. Because yes, we all have an individual purpose, and that's why we all matter. And, it doesn't matter if your purpose is to uplift one person or 100,000 people. It doesn't matter, because you are there for that specific job.
Yes, that's great. Oh, I love this. What advice can you give moms on how to best deal with their children's feelings?
So we all had parents who
Mhm.
didn't know how to deal with feelings. And so we learned some things from them that they didn't realize is harmful. And we may not think is harmful, but it could be harmful. So when a child is crying, saying there, don't cry, is promoting emotional repression. Saying turn that frown upside down and smile is promoting emotional repression. Yeah. And this idea of being, the positive movement, the idea of being happy all the time, ignores the fact that every single one of us gets difficult feelings. And so it's like, unless we're given the tools for dealing with those difficult feelings, they will get repressed. And then repression has consequences in yours and other people's lives. So it's really better
So what I
to
can,
allow that feeling to flow.
yes. So what I can hear now is be careful of your words that you use with your children. And
I don't want people to be like, oh, did I say something wrong? I want to say, consider what your parents said to you and whether it was harmful or helpful.
yes.
And once you make that decision, then you can decide whether you want to use that with your child. And some people are kind of in denial of the harm that happened to them because they're completely removed from their emotions. And so, there's the risk that there's one person who's like, oh yeah, my parent, they beat me, but I turned out okay. And so they decide to beat their child. That's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And the second thing is that if you want your child to be happy, happiness is expressed on your face with a smile probably, but if you smile, it doesn't mean that you're happy inside, right?
Exactly.
So you have to make sure that the happiness is inside, and then it's naturally expressed
It's
from the
natural.
outside.
Talked about made me think of putting on a mask of happiness.
Ah, yes.
And that mask is a mask. It's not the real you. The real you is feeling what you're feeling.
Right.
So, sometimes when we're at work or going to start a podcast and we are carrying, heavy feelings, difficult feelings, then we will put on that happy face and say, well, right now I have to do this. And that's okay, because sometimes we do have to go on with the show. As long as we allow ourselves to feel the feelings once that show is over, then we're fine. But if we continue to bottle them throughout the rest of the day and the week and the month and the year, then there will be consequences.
Yes. Wow. What has helped you to heal internally?
There is so much to that question. I would say 5 or 6 years ago, I met an energy healer, someone who can sense energy, and she would make me feel the feelings. And I had many from, my repressed feelings from my father, the repressed feelings of not being treated properly from my former husband. There were so many repressed feelings, and I would, she would be like, no, keep feeling it, keep feeling it, keep feeling it, keep feeling it. And I'd be like, no.
Yes.
So for someone, I used to be the queen of emotional repression, and now I'm the queen of emotional expression.
Yes, that's great. But it was an uncomfortable way.
Yes. And at that time, I didn't have the understanding of the focused attention, because the biochemical reaction in our body when an emotion happens is about 90 seconds. But we've all experienced negative feelings or difficult feelings that go much longer than that. And the reason is because our minds are focused on the circumstance.
Wow.
It isn't fair. He did that to me. I don't want it to feel this way. It's our minds.
So great. Yes, this is so great. Thank you very much for sharing this, because this is crucial.
This is crucial, because when you give focused attention to the feeling, it will be gone in about 90 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
When your mind returns to the circumstance, you do it again.
Right. That's great. Wow. Yeah. This can help so many people, I think, to make a shift really in the mind, because we're so used to focus on the circumstances. And we're so used to focus on the outside and to look on the outside instead of our inside.
Yeah, it's exactly that. And people would talk about managing your feelings, which was just emotional repression. And I say, you allow your feelings and you manage your thoughts.
Yeah.
Because your thoughts are the problem.
Great. Wow, this is so valuable. Thank you very, very much. Yes, coming back to your books, can you give us a brief insight of the stories? You just mentioned fairy tales and yeah.
So the main character, Bella, is about 14 years old, and she is spirited away from the human world into the Fae world. So she's kind of like me moving to England, dropped in this place where she knows nobody and doesn't understand the society. And she has to learn how to make her way. She basically ends up going to a school called Yelly Moon. Mm-hmm. And in Yelly Moon, she makes 3 or 4 friends who become the main characters throughout all the books. And the messages we talked about today, the feel your feelings, the understanding of emotional repression, the understanding of even generational trauma is kind of woven into the tale. So even if you didn't listen to this podcast, but you picked up one of the books, you'd probably walk away with some understanding of what we talked about today.
Great. Yes. So I love this. Where can people find you? Reach out to you. What do you offer? You offer your books? Do you ever offer some help too with all your
Yeah, I do.
experiences?
So I have my books, and they're on Amazon in 9 different countries, including Germany,
Right.
but they're not yet translated. So they're only in English. So that, can be a problem or not. And I
We should suggest to give this to the school for the English lesson to read
it would
this
be a
there.
fabulous way to learn English. Yeah. Then I have Children's Lives Matter, which is the television show I produce. Because I have all this, knowledge about how parents inadvertently create problems for their children. The purpose of Children's Lives Matter is to give parents tools in order to understand the issues the child is facing. So later today, we are filming teen suicide prevention for our episode.
Yes.
And the information in there is going to be about how can a parent connect with a sullen teenager?
Mm-hmm.
So, your teen is not talking to you and won't talk to you. What you need to do is put yourself into their space.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't about invading their space. This is about understanding and being empathetic with
Mm-hmm.
where they are. But there's still a gap that happens when a child looks at the parent. They don't see the teenager that the parent was. They see the successful adult with a job, with a podcast, with this, with that, the mom who knows how to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
They do not think that you can understand what they're feeling. So I tell parents to go back to when they were 12 or 14 and think about how they felt about the things that happened in their life and share how they felt with the kids. Because the world we grew up in is way different from the world our kids grow up in.
Yes.
So we can't ever really begin to understand the circumstances that they're faced.
Yes.
But we can understand how they feel about it. When we do that, when we take off that mask of the mom, of the successful adult, and be vulnerable with them, they will now open up and talk to you.
Wow, this is great.
Yeah.
And I think this can help so many parents, really, to say, because this is just a great picture to look at. How did you feel as a parent when you were young, when you were a teen, and get in contact with your teenager again about this emotion,
right,
about this
because
feeling?
they can see that you understand how they feel then.
And this is the connection.
There's no way you can understand what they feel.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Where can people find you? Do you have a website?
I do. My website is angelalegh.com. It's AngelaLegh.com. And then I think I sent you the link to the Children's Lives Matter episodes.
I will place everything in the description as well.
Yeah, and if I fail to send it to you, just email me. I will send it to you because it is a streaming show, so it's available anywhere in the world.
Oh,
it's being watched in Uganda.
That's great.
Yeah. So, and it's on demand, so you don't have to worry about the time zone difference.
Great.
So, yeah, it's a resource for parents.
Wow, thank you very much. I really enjoyed our conversation and so much value here for parents, for mothers, and so important things to really look at. What are your thoughts? What are the emotions? What are the feelings? What comes up? What do you have and step into again?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then to guide your children the same, to
And it's
acknowledge
so
theirs.
important because the modeling of behavior, we could talk till we're blue in the face to a child and they're going to do whatever they do.
Mhm.
Mostly what they're going to do is follow our example. So I think back to, my parents saying, don't smoke while they smoked a cigarette. It's like, yeah,
Why?
you're doing it, so I can do it. It's think about what behavior you're modeling for your child when it comes to your own emotions. And that is going to do more for your children than anything else. If you start modeling positive emotional expression, then they will follow.
Great. So take the responsibility for yourself.
Yeah.
Look at yourself. Great. I love this. Thank you very much for being my guest here, Angela. I
Thank you,
really
Blanka.
loved it.
It was such a pleasure to talk with you today.
Thank you. So, all the listeners, please follow Renew Motherhood and stay tuned.